Hi, everyone. Dom Famularo here for the Sabian Education Network. And this is really so much fun for me to be involved with all these different young players that are the future of tomorrow. And if there's one thing that Sabian does so well, aside from making great product and having great people that work for the company and having great service, is they really know how to connect with great young people to allow the feeling of this fun art form to continue in the hands of very capable and competent people. And these musicians that we have involved in the Sabian Education Network program, that again is managed by Joe Bergamini, who was a former student of mine. So it's been a real nice connection for myself to see this wonderful legacy of people that came to me to study continue on now being leaders of the community. And who we have today is another great leader of the community. I was able to study with Al Miller here on Long Island, who was an absolute phenomenal educator and person and mentor, and just a great influence to many, many people. And his son, Matt Miller, who I got to know and still continue to communicate with Matt. He's just a phenomenal player himself. So I want to introduce you all to Matt Miller. Let's bring him in.
Hey, how you doing, Dom?
Matt, I am doing fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. We have
It's
the
it's great to be here.
incredible opportunity of this, technology that I can be in my studio, you're in your studio, and wherever we are on this crazy planet is the enjoyment of being able to see people joining us and this message that I want to make sure we clearly explain in who you are, what you do, what you have done, and what you've continued to do in the drumming community by moving this great community forward. So, again, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Dom. It's great to be here.
Now I got to go back. I got to go back. We've got a zillion stories we can tell. So in an hour of time, we're going to try and squeeze a lot of this stuff into the process. But with your dad playing drums and having the studio in his home, your dad had played with Xavier Cougar, so many great drummers. Your dad was friends with Buddy Rich. I mean, Buddy's been to the house. I mean, with that kind of influence, and your dad teaching at his studio, which was in the lower part of your house where you guys were living, because that's where I studied. And Al had two drum sets. He had mirrors. He had practice pad sets. He was way ahead of the curve
Yeah.
in drum set education, going back to the 1960s when I was studying with your dad at that time. So
Wow.
your dad was way ahead of the curve. What was it like growing up? And where did the drumming bug finally bite you?
Well, yeah, I would. It is an unusual, uh, way to be a kid. My father was, he was always he wanted me to play for his students. So I just remember so many times where he would call me downstairs to sit down and show off, and I kind of, that's one of the big memories of my life. Just I played all day, and that's what I did. I think it's probably an unusual way to grow up, and so I was always like in the spotlight as a little boy, and just, I was completely absorbed in Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson, and that's what my father was listening to at the time. So, at that age, a little boy like that is just, kind of living in a fantasy of imagining himself being Buddy Rich or Louis Bellson, and I just remember it's all I thought about, and yeah, it was pretty vivid memories for me, you
So
know.
you were listening to the music, you listened to Buddy's music and or Louis Bell's music. It was big band music that you were first introduced
Yeah.
as a young child.
Yeah. Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson, Rob McConnell. My father loved Rob McConnell. Maynard Ferguson.
Yeah.
I used to see Buddy a lot and Louis as a little boy, and I have incredible memories of being on the bus, with Buddy you know, and I heard it's funny because everybody always says how, talks about how Buddy was difficult, and I'm sure he was, professionally speaking, I guess, but all I ever saw from Buddy was a total gentleman. I mean, he used to treat my mother like gold, and in the bus. One day I did see him kind of get down on somebody, but it actually surprised me because I had seen him so many times uh, before that as a total. He was kind of not a soft guy, but he wasn't the hard gruff guy that I kept on hearing he was. He was
Yeah.
just a nice. He loved kids. He loved us. He used to pick us up, and I remember playing ball with him. It's like a beautiful guy from what I remember.
He really was, and I got to know him and meet him through your dad back in 1971, and he was always kind and funny. And was he hard on the band? Listen, you try keeping an 18-piece band on the road, playing 300 dates a year globally.
Kids right out of college, right?
You have got to be a disciplinary to know how to keep them in line
Yeah.
and keep organized, and then to make sure that when you get to the stage, everyone plays their best all the time, which was what was amazing about his band. Every time you heard it, the band was on fire.
Yeah. Really, it's incredible.
So how did your dad come to meet Buddy? How did that happen?
Well, I don't know exactly. I don't know how they first met. They met in the service. My father was in the Air Force, Buddy was in the Navy, I think. Right? I'm not even.
I thought the Marines, and I,
The
and I
Mar- oh, the Marines. I don't even know.
yeah,
But it's funny. I wonder if my uncle knows the story of actually how they met.
yeah,
But yeah. So I don't know. I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna let you know.
yeah.
I
Well,
bet you he
I,
knows.
I remember Dad saying that he met him, in the service. So, I mean,
In the
however,
service, yeah.
however they hooked up together, but they got to know each other. They were both from New York. They were both drummers, and
Yeah.
they liked each other, and they hit it off. And whenever Buddy would come in town, he would call your dad up. So
Right.
that started the process of all of a sudden. Then your dad would grab yourself or grab me or whoever and go down to hear the band, and your dad was always that welcoming of a person to get us involved to hear Buddy and meet him and get to hear the magic that Buddy had every night.
Yeah. I love that story you tell when you about where was do you remember what club was that? When you guys went together to the club and you had given somebody your ticket because Buddy brought you up.
That was right at Poor Peter's. If you remember, Poor Peter's
Right.
was a club right near where you guys lived.
In Plainview?
In the Plainview Farmingdale area.
Oh, okay.
And it was a big jazz club. And Basie would play there. All the big bands would play there. We heard all the bands there. Your dad and I would go to hear Ellington, Basie, Maynard Ferguson, and of course, Buddy was there several times. It was just a spot that whenever the big bands were traveling in town, they always booked the big band, and it always sold out.
Right.
And there it was. I bought some tickets to go there, and then had met Buddy and your dad at the house,
It's a great story.
and
My
then
buddy, I want you to meet my buddy.
I want you to meet a buddy friend of mine. Exactly right. So really pretty magical how it was, and just incredible. But so now you're hearing this. So Buddy would come by the house, and you'd hang out with him, and you'd like, this is the king of kings in drumming, and he's hanging out at the house at a little suburbia house in Plainview, Long Island.
Yep. My father, of course, again wanted me to play, like he always does with the students, and so Buddy was there, and I ended up playing. I don't I probably play Time Check, and You
Right.
Gotta Try. And boy, there's Buddy sitting watching me play with his headphones on like this. I'll never forget. I have a picture of it. I have to dig it up.
That's fantastic. Well, I remember
Pretty amazing.
I remember hearing you as a kid playing those tunes. In some of the lessons, Buddy Buddy would hear you play doing it. But I mean, Al would have you play it for many of his students, of which I remember you coming in and
Right.
playing Time Check, and You Gotta Try, and a couple of the other basically blues and some of the tunes. And it was just so
Right.
good to hear you play these tunes. And you were young; you were like a little kid, man, playing these tunes, swinging your tail off.
I remember when I got a little older and I discovered Pat Metheny. That was I went to his first record, the White record. I don't know the name of it, and that was the first fusion that I was still young enough to be at my dad's house showing off for his students. But I remember that period. That's probably when I first. Well, it's definitely when I first met you and heard you around that period. I was 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, aside from Buddy being at the house, Louis Belson would come by and visit the house. I met
Yep.
Louis at your parents' house several times, and Louis came by there and even stayed over, slept over.
He slept in my bed. I had to sleep in the couch. He slept in the waterbed upstairs in my room. Louis Belson. It's unbelievable.
And when you think about it, Matt, it really is an incredible way to grow up. And for all the people that are listening and the people that will hear this in the future when this is on, Facebook and the SabianEd.com to go back on the YouTube channel. These are memories that, I mean, how, blessed you were
I know.
to be in the presence of these great leaders in our art form that they were legends when they were, when they were young.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, when they got older and now that they have passed on, these guys were legends. But your dad, equally a legend. I mean, here on Long Island, your dad at one point, he had 80 students a week that he was teaching. He had about 13 or 14 teachers teaching for him.
Yep. He had a waiting list.
The waiting list was insane. And when I met your dad, I was about maybe 14 or 15,
Wow.
playing at Carl Hoppel's, which was a big catering facility in Baldwin, which is no longer there, Baldwin, Long Island. And it was a big facility that had big shows and show bands would come in. And my band was playing a huge party to a couple thousand people. And your dad came up to play the floor show, and he asked to use my drum set. And I said, Mr. Miller, I'd be honored. I'd heard about your dad, but I'd never met him. And he came by and he tapped the drums and sat behind. He said, boy, these drums sound great and they feel perfect. I said, boy, by all means, you can use it. I said, but can I sit next to you while you read the show? He said, well, not only do I want you to sit next to me, I want you to turn the pages. He put me to work.
Yeah.
Which meant I had to pay attention and now follow the music and go to it. So it was, and your dad, not only was he playing drums, he conducted it. He was like, he was literally the musical director.
Yep.
He did so much stuff organizing the band and making it happen with the big band. And of course, the band cut the charts through incredibly perfectly well. Your dad played flawlessly. I'm flipping pages out of fear. What I'm doing. And I said, Mr. Miller, I'd love to have some lessons with you. He said, well, he said, I'm completely filled out with a waiting list. He said, but call me Monday morning at 7 a.m. and I'll see if I can find you a spot.
Wow.
He started teaching at like 7:30.
Oh yeah, I remember that. 7 to 7, Dom. It was 7 to 7. Dinner was 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was incredible. So Monday morning, I called Mr. Miller up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm up and I'm talking to him, and he goes, I've got an opening at a certain time. If you can come in, it was like a 45-minute spot that was available. That I'll put you in. I came in. He loved my playing, and he just opened me up to a whole nother level of what it was. But it was really amazing. His skill, his people skills, his compassion skills, his teaching skills. He played phenomenal. His room was magical because it was the 2 drum sets and the play along with the headphones. And I mean, he was so ahead of the curve. So you were in this situation. So were you starting to study formally? Were you learning stuff out of books? What was happening at that time?
Well, yeah. I was resistant because my dad was, Al Miller. He is my father. So he wanted me to learn to read and he wanted me to be more academic. And I just played the records. I just wanted to, that was what turned me on.
Yeah.
So, but I can't tell you what age, but at one point, well, I don't know what age it was, but I got my butt kicked where I went to the Louis Belson National Drum Contest. And I came in first regionally, which I got lucky because my sight reading was awful. And that's as far as I went because of my sight reading.
Yeah.
And from that day, and I don't remember how old I was, maybe I was, 9 or 10. I realized, of course, that he was right. And I kind of made a change from just playing the records to studying.
Yeah.
And, I got my father had some really innovative ideas in terms of his teaching reading, without getting into detail. One that I talk about a lot because I think it's brilliant. The Simon Sternberg book, Modern Drum Studies.
Right.
It's written in cut time, which I find interesting. but he he would have you play that book 5 different ways in 4/4 with a triplet roll, an even roll, and then an eighth note triplet roll in 4, and then in cut time. So you know, just your concept of counting changes. And I always thought that was a brilliant thing. And I teach out of the book. I don't know if it's old school now at this point to teach out of that book, but I don't care. I mean, I think it's a brilliant book. They're little etudes that are, they're not difficult until you get into the eighth note, even in cut time,
Yeah.
and it's musical. These each page is, I think, divided into 2 pieces, and they're not exercises as much as they're little pieces of music, and it's all classy. You'd also play it, press roll, and you'd also play it open and really count your notes. So I think it's a brilliant book. So Modern Drum Studies is one that I recommend.
We went through all those books together, and all the different roles and the concepts. You would read the same etude of music 5 different ways.
5 different ways.
And not only was it great for your reading, it was great for your transcribing of looking at it in cut time, but playing it in 4. So you had to understand that aspect of it. But it
Yeah.
also literally opened up your chops. Your rolls,
Absolutely.
your rolls got better and cleaner and stronger, and you knew exactly what roll to place at what tempo because of the
Absolutely.
rates of that roll. And that was something which your dad really understood really well in the concepts of curriculum, where now you had so many tools that you could use at different times. And that book really was extremely helpful.
Yep. And when you got to the eighth note even, it's so fast. It's like 3 times the speed of the 16th triplet. I just have a page of the books that I don't know if you want to talk about books now, but
Yeah, let's see what you have.
like and again, I should know what people are teaching nowadays. I'm definitely, I teach my own way, but I definitely come from my dad's school, where it's really it's foundation is emphasized. How often have you taught a student who you ask them what a dotted note means and they don't know? I mean, I see that a lot. So I try not to be boring with my students, and I don't think I am, but I want to make sure that they're covering their foundation. So the lesson will definitely be partly, all right, play your rudiments. Can you count this roll? What is a time signature? Explain it to me. Or, I just think that stuff is important. Um, the classical stuff like the Anthony Cerrone, that's a beautiful book that I'm still going through lately now. It's a well written book. There's some great books. All the rudimental stuff, the Wilcoxon.
Yeah.
I'm sure you teach through that stuff.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. I practice it every day. And the Fred Albright stuff, which is, really challenging. I only know of 2 of his books, but the rhythmic analysis, my father used to read that, and I always thought to myself, I guess I'll never be able to do that, because he was amazing. He was such a great reader.
Yeah.
But now I'm practicing it, and I can get through it. I mean, slowly, but I understand it. And if those of you who are listening to this, if you haven't checked out that book, it's pretty amazing. And the thing about it that I find fascinating is it's reading is like math. It's either right or it's not. So you could figure out any of these. Anybody could figure out any of these patterns if you take your time.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It really is an important part. And that's one of the things that your dad did so well as far as just understanding reading. He could read anything. I mean, when he was like 14, he was winning national contests of rudimental
Yeah.
playing. I mean, he was such a skilled player. And listen, the understanding of the amount of great players that came out of the portals of your dad's room, the Tommy Brecklines, the
Yeah.
Rod Morgensteins, the Carmine Appice, Cobham. I just see Cobham coming there, Billy Cobham. I mean, in his studio, great drummers aside from Buddy and Lou and all the guys that your dad hung out with.
Yep.
It was a haven of great drummers, and I had the fortunate opportunity of studying with your dad at a young age and sticking with him for several years. And then from your dad, he kind of set me on to Morello, so it was kind of interesting to
Yep.
see the evolution of all what your dad did in his reading. but his reading was flawless in what it was. So, and think of the players that came out of there that all were great readers.
Mm-hmm.
All these drummers that came out of there were great readers, which I think really kind of helped them pursue their careers to a higher level.
Yeah. He made it fun too. Like he again, I was a resistant little kid, but I remember admiring for first of all, he loved it. He loved it. So when he taught it, you felt his enthusiasm, like he got turned on by explaining rhythms,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that, I know I missed a lot because he was my dad and I was young, but as I got older, I had more and more appreciation for him as I became old enough to, get out of my own way and just look at him,
Well,
he,
you went through many, many books. You went through many, many different. You were constantly. I mean, you had some of the best education you had was just being with your dad, hearing all these great drummers,
yeah,
and hearing him teach, and hearing him play. And his big band was just impeccable.
yeah,
That he had, and I had organized a concert with Buddy's big band, Louie's big band, and Al's big band at Hofstra University here in Long
Hofstra
Island.
Playhouse, yeah.
Oh my God, that was just a sold out event to a couple thousand people. And your dad's band came out and just set the pace of just slaying it.
Yeah.
He moved his band off and quickly brought in Louis' band, and Louis' band, continued with the energy. Then we moved off Louis' band and brought Buddy's band in, and Buddy's band, that was August 19th of 1983.
Wow, 83, that's right. I played on that. I played Nutville, I guess, with my dad. We had a father and son routine.
Absolutely, man. So I mean, I think of that day. So 83, when you think about how young you were then, that's almost 40 years ago. So it's pretty amazing when you think about all the stuff that we had done and that your dad was involved in, and the connection of bringing in Louis' band and Buddy's band, all these big bands. I mean, my gosh, it was incredible. And in the audience was Pearl Bailey, which was Louis Bell's wife. She showed up for that. It was just to see her there.
I'll never forget. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I'll forget. Carl Palmer was there.
Yeah, he was there.
And I'll never forget. I mean, I shouldn't, I was surprised because this Carl Palmer, he was on the top of the world. And I was this little boy who had just played. And I remember he didn't say anything to me. And I always thought, wow, it would have been nice if Carl Palmer said something to me. And he just didn't. I don't mean to diss him. And Carl, if you're watching this, I apologize. But I always wondered why he didn't say anything to me.
I think it's because he was blown away that you were that young and that good at that stage. That I think he was pretty amazed at the process, and it just. But I mean, I remember just those events of going on, just the fact that you were involved with that, and we got you.
Know.
It was just an amazing time. So now, but I want you to talk about your Uncle Joe. Your Uncle Joe was another phenomenal drummer that I heard perform several times here in the Long Island area.
Yeah,
it was kind of like a Buddy / Louis drummer, and he was just a phenomenal player. And he also studied with Morello also.
Yeah, he's my Uncle Joe. He's Joe Cavallaro. He's still practicing. He's 84, and he's one of the most dedicated drummers I've ever met. And he's one of those people that doesn't talk about it, and you'll be hard pressed for you to ever hear him play because I mean, when he was working a lot, you'd have to kind of almost sneak in. I think you'd agree. I mean, if you said I'm coming to see you play, he was just that way, And it's too bad because I mean I get it. I was kind of raised by him in a way, so I understand it. But and I have a little bit of that in me too, which I'm trying not to have. But where you don't want to. You don't want to come on like boast in any way, and to the point where it goes in the other direction where you become timid, and he is like that, and but he's a real talent, and I got a chance to see him play one day when I don't know why it happened, but I was in his house and he just started playing, and I remember sitting on the floor and I just shut my mouth. Yeah. And I got to see him play, and it was phenomenal. And if he was watching this, or if he's watching this, he's going to be cringing right now. But I remember, and I don't know how old I was young, but I remember saying, "Wow, the technique was phenomenal." He had this thing that he did with his hands that I couldn't explain. Just the way he looked. You know, anybody who's that dedicated, you just see the power. You know, and
Yeah.
he had that power. And I remember uh, that the impact that that had on me. And I can't talk to him about it. I can't. You know, it doesn't go anywhere because he doesn't want to talk about it. You know,
Well,
but he's special. You know.
he really is one of those, those hidden diamonds that I had the chance several times to go here and play, because when I heard he was working, from your dad, we would literally go and sneak in. And sometimes we'd go in and stand by the door and just watch him without him knowing we were there. And then when they got off the set, we would then walk in.
Right.
And he said, listen, guys, I thanks so much again, but I really would rather you guys not be here when I go back on again. So we'd
Wow.
say, okay, Joe, we just want to come by and say hello, thanks so much. We'd say goodbye and walk out, and then listen to the next set outside, peeking through the door. So it was just incredible just to hear him play. But he really was that level where Morello was at, with that speed in his left hand and the clarity and how
Yeah.
he swung, and just another bit. So here you are around these great musicians that are kind of just influencing you, whether you realized it or whether you didn't realize it. It was happening,
Yeah.
which was incredible. So now you were involved with the jazz big band thing. How did you kind of get involved in more of a contemporary, style of players like Gadd and stuff like that? Because the
I
way
re-
you play now, you really have a great contemporary sound.
I remember it well. I know exactly. It was. I heard. Well, I was 13 years old. I was at a bar mitzvah. A friend of mine was at a bar mitzvah, and Skip Scott. You know the name Skip Scott?
Skip Scott.
Drummer. He's a good guy. He's. I haven't. I have to call him. I actually tried to text him recently. He turned me on to Steve Gadd.
Yeah.
At the bar mitzvah, we were sitting in the front of the place, and he said, "Have you heard the Friends album, Chick Corea Friends, and the Mad Hatter?"
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when I heard that. It was completely foreign. It was the most amazing thing I've ever heard.
So that was the early '80s.
Well, yeah, sure. Early '80s, maybe '79. Maybe it was when the record came out. That would be '78, something like that.
78, 79, right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably when this was. I was 13, so I was born in '65.
Hmm.
So I started hearing about Steve Gadd and watching him, and realized that there was a whole nother thing out there. And what really did it for me was, at that period, I came to see you play with a band called Night Shift.
Yeah.
And I went, mind you, from just really big band, Buddy Rich, that's what I knew, hearing of Steve Gadd, listening to friends and saying, what the hell is that? And then watching you play with this band. And it was, you had the drums were 10, 12, 14, 16, way up here to down here, and everything tucked in real tight, I never saw anything like it. I remember I sat down behind your drums and I was like, what the hell is this, Because it's the opposite of what the two bass drums and the snare drum tilted like this, and the two toms here,
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that to me was a very significant transition, going from big band to hearing this brilliant Steve Gadd, to watching you and saying, oh, that's what this is, this fusion, this funky type of new sound, and then that's when I started studying with you, probably around that time.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was, because I'm sure I was like probably a pain in the neck saying, I want to study with you.
But it was great, because at that time, and I came from the jazz big band, Sonny Payne, Buddy, Louie, all those great players from that stage. And then when I got involved into the small group jazz players, the Max Roach and the Elvins and Tony and those guys, and then got involved. Then Mahavishnu started happening with Cobham, and then you throw in Gadd. This was like for myself, it was like, my gosh, the world was exploding dramatically.
Yeah.
And you come along as this next generation, you start taking this to a whole different level, which has been amazing to see, because I've seen some recordings recently that you posted on your Facebook page of your band, and it just sounds fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
I mean,
Thanks. You with this COVID period has been good for me in that way. As you know very well, I don't, I'm not I don't get out there on Facebook, social media as much as I should, and I've been trying. And it's mainly because I have something that I'm proud of. It's not like me, blowing drum solos, which I would never do. I don't have that, I guess, personality. But I'm involved in these bands that I'm proud of that I think sound really good, and so I started, you know, videotaping them, and I learned Final Cut Pro, and I started, developing these videos. I'm getting better at it. But so we posted this one band, GMP Funk. We're playing tonight, actually. Um, uh, we posted 5 videos in the last year or so, and there's more to come.
and you're playing tonight in Seacliff.
Tonight I'm playing with 2 bands the same night. It's GMP Funk, which is Bob Gallo, George Panos, and me. It's like the music that you just talked about. It's like
Yeah.
very muscular, fusiony kind of high energy stuff. And the other band is a band called Gnome Sane, Nomesane, with a question mark, Gnome Sane. And it's a wonderful band. It's Teddy Kumpel and Bob Stander. It's a guitar trio, and it's kind of quite opposite of GMP Funk, where it's very melodic and harmonic, but funky and very dynamic. It's a wonderful band. I'm excited about it. So we're playing tonight at 8:30 at a place called Still Partners in Seacliff. Gnome Sane plays first at 8:30, and then GMP Funk. So it's going to be a long night. It's going to be a fun night.
So during this pandemic, you have been able to get together with the band, rehearse, write, and utilize the time well, even though there was no work and everybody was just in lockdown. You were really kind of taking advantage of the time that you had, which is
Yeah.
incredibly smart.
I'm lucky. I have this beautiful studio I'm very proud of. I think I know it sounds great. Everybody likes it, and I've put a lot of time into it. So yeah, there wasn't any work, but I'm in four original bands, and I'm in a Eagles cover band called the Fast Lane, and I'm also in a country band um, called 10 Cloud Country. Cloud 10 Country, Cloud 10 Country. And so I've been able to make a lot of music, not make a lot of money, but definitely make a lot of music in the last a year and a half. It's been a very good period for me.
Well, that's the next thing too. I know you also have been teaching all your life, and the concepts that your dad taught you, and then what you've discovered on your own. You really have taken your dad's ideas and brought them well into the 21st century, which I think is an incredible evolution of what you've done with this great foundation that your dad gave yourself and myself and all these other great players that passed through the portals of your dad's knowledge. And by having that, and then building on top of that with new ideas and new books, and building on, you've got a great system of how you're teaching, which is what I want everyone to understand. That the mattmillerdrums.com. We have this. Let me see if I can go to this banner here and get these. Let's see where my banners are here. I think right here, right? mattmillerdrum.com.
Right. That's the website that I built a few years ago. And forgive me, folks, I still need to update it. There's a lot more music, none of which that I mentioned is on this. I have to do that, and I will this week. I promised myself I was going to do it. But it's a site that I built, and it has a lot of great music on it, and some audio and some video, some of the big band stuff that I used to do. My father's big band, after he passed, I took over the band, and there's some footage of that on there, and just a bunch of good music, and my bio and all that stuff.
But and we just real quickly before I go to the school is the big band. I had the chance of playing with your dad's big band when your dad had gotten ill and needed his heart surgery. He called me up and asked me if I'd fill in with the band for several dates that he had booked, and it was
I'll never forget it.
You were young and helped me. You and your brother Chris helped me load the car with the stands and the music. And the music, your dad's musical library is freaking huge.
Yeah, giant.
We'd have, I mean, the boxes and boxes and luggage of charts that we bring to the dates and pass out the books of what we wanted to do. And when your dad called me up and said, "Listen, I can't do the date. The date's on. Would you sub for me?" And I think your uncle was not available at the time. And I said, "Absolutely, I'll do it. You'd have anybody available." It was last minute. So we went and did it. And I said, "I'm going to need some help." So he got, you and Chris to help me.
Yep.
So we laughed hysterically and got to the beach shell and set up. And it was incredible to play with the band. The band was so tight and so enjoyable that there's no greater high for me than playing in a big band.
Yeah.
I know you've done it. You have that experience. And I know you've talked about putting that big band back together again.
Lately, we've been. It was such a big. It's such a big undertaking. It's 15 to 17 guys, and I did it for a couple of years. I had the help. I had help from Jenny Zepnik, who I'm going to give her a call. But so it's a little daunting, but I would love to do it again. I loved playing that music, and it's something I haven't done in a long time. I haven't even thought about it, but I remember how I loved it. So I'm speaking to this great trumpet player, Mark Opaz, who I work with, and he was like, "I'll do it," and I was like, "Wow, really?" So he got me thinking. So I might be pursuing that.
Matt, there are so many great trumpet, trombone, and saxophone players that would love to just get out and play.
I know.
Who are not playing, and it takes a leader like how your dad was
Yeah.
to put the band together. And that band worked at parks. There's summer park dates that you can do.
I know.
There's certain places you can play. Are you going to make a lot of money? Probably not. But if everybody can make just a few bucks in their pocket, and you can have a big band play 3 or 4 sets and have that music still alive and well, and you have all this great charts. I mean, the book that your dad has is
a good book. Yeah.
Buddy stuff. He's got Louis stuff. He's got so much great stuff in there that is just really valuable music to still be heard.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it would still be hip. The book would be. I thought about that. What he has in the book. It's some really good tunes.
It's contemporary as it is now. So they're having that big band together. But you've got some of that stuff on Matt Miller, drum.com. But you also have this one here, MillerDrumSchool.com.
Right. That's it's more about. I didn't build this. This was built for me, and it's Miller Drum School. That's right. And it has, you can buy the books on it, and it just basically focuses more on the teaching, not as much about the playing. And of course, it points to mattmillerdrum.com, so you could see that too. But it's mostly about the teaching.
Well, I want everyone to go there, and anybody that has any questions as far as teaching and what's happening, but go there and just check it out. It's just some great stuff, and Matt will guide you along the way. But I want to talk about, Matt, about your dad's books, and this book that was just recently released, put out, Al Miller, 1,000 Solos. These books that your dad put together, he wrote 6 books that were classic books. I still use the books. Your dad's been gone now for 21 years, which is it's hard to even imagine that because of how vivid his presence still is in I know my life and my teaching when I'm in my studio here. And this book was kind of brought back and laid out in the 21st century, and you made this happen and put some video in there. So just talk about the process of the book.
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you to you because you've been pushing me to do this for the longest time, and I've been ashamed that it took, that I just couldn't bring myself to start it. I was, anyway. So I totally thank you and give you a lot of credit for that.
We did it, man. I wanted you to have this book out in your dad's name and have the book printed and done. And it's a great book. And you've kind of added your performance exercises in there on video, which is a whole nother level, which is fantastic.
Right. I took there's 10 routines in the book, and I picked a page per, routine 1 was page 11, routine 2 was page 14, and just did that. So you can, and there's also audio for much of the book too.
Yeah.
So I think it's great. I mean, personally, I think it's a great book. There's a lot of good jazz independence books, but this, I use it. I always have, and I think it's really smart and easy to understand. And it also talks about, he's also emphasizing the reading. I mean, there's 3 different ways of like, this rhythm is written 3 different ways.
Yeah.
4 different ways, 4 completely different ways. So I just think that's really smart, and it's a great book.
Well,
I don't know what to say.
Again, your dad was just so ahead of the game. I mean, first of all, the book came out in 1961.
Wow.
And he had 10 different systems in there of how you played each section of each page.
Yep.
And how you would play it around the drum kit, on the snare drum, with accents, et cetera, within a groove, within a jazz groove. And the independence that you learn, the soloing you learn, how to play fills, how to play accents, it's all in here.
Yeah.
So from a foundation, from a beginning stage, it's brilliant. And the fact that this came out, this was way before New Breed.
Yeah, my God, yeah.
So New Breed came out, and Gary, called it systems. He came up with 39 systems, where your dad had his
routines.
And routines. So it was kind of interesting how everybody started to adapt and mold. And what Gary did was then put it into rock and funk and do that. But your dad then, through his 5 other books, started doing that also way before this. A lot of these books were out. So he was, again, ahead of the curve. So we have the first one's out. It's in print and also in digital. And we're going to work on the rest of the books to get them out digitally.
I have all the books here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This book, by the way, is something I'm currently practicing, and it's a rough one. It's a rough one, it really is.
It is. So I want everyone to know that they can go to, Alfred, is the distributor of the Wisdom Media books that we have out, so they can track the book down in print. But they can also get the book at hudsonmusic.com digitally, and have the book, of course, with the audio and the digital files also. For the video files that can be there, so that's all available. But I wanted to talk about the cymbals. We had one question here from Jay from Jay Buck. You know Jay Buck?
Not sure. Jay Buck.
He said, "Thank you for doing this. As always, unless I missed it, would love a rundown of Matt's cymbal setup." Let me see if I can pull him in here. Let me see if I can show this here. Jay Buck, thank you for doing this. As always, unless I missed it, I would love a rundown of Matt's cymbal setup. I always love to hear about cymbals. Matt, what cymbals of yours is your favorite or your go-to? Thanks so much. Thank you, Jay Buck, for the question.
I wonder if I probably know who Jay Buck is, but I just can't put it together. It's like an abbreviated name, I guess. Jay Buck. I'm sorry, Jay.
Sure. All right. So talk about your cymbals, Matt. Just talk about your setup there. I'm gonna bring you to full screen here. So if I can remove, you might not hear me, but it's gonna have a full shot of your cymbals. So just go around the drum set.
Sure. I have to remember to keep my head turned to this microphone. So I just got these 3 crash cymbals, these complex thins. This is an 18. I'll hit it, see if it sounds like anything. They're dark and they're real nice. They sound more medium as they get smaller.
Matt, can you just turn your camera a little bit more towards the drum set so we can capture a little bit more of those cymbals?
Right. Okay.
Is that possible? Can you just bring your camera a little bit more towards the kit, the other way?
This way.
Yeah. Right there. Perfect.
All right.
Thanks so much. I'm going to bring you back.
There you go. Okay.
So
how about I go left to right? There you go. That's much better, Dom. So on the left, I have this 20 China, which was Dom's right here. This cymbal I've had for a couple of years, and I love it. It's sort of thin. These are my old hats that I picked out with Bill Zildjian at the Sabian factory when I was in Blood, Sweat, and Tears, when I first got endorsed with the company. So I'll never forget, these were picked out by Bill Zildjian. These are beautiful cymbals. It's my 17 complex, my 18. A little 12-inch splash. This today I put up this Evolution 20 for a session I did, and it sounds great. We got this 17 complex and a 19. Now this sounds more like a thin, which I really, really like because it's a bigger cymbal. Where this sounds more like a medium to me. And this old flat ride, that's wonderful. And that's it. That's my cymbals.
They really sound fantastic, even on the internet here, on how they are. They're just fantastic cymbals. I mean, Sabian really is an amazing company that
They sure are.
they just make really great product up in the east coast of Canada, and they are just great people. And it's been a pleasure to be involved with them at many different levels.
Yeah, I think so too. I love them, and they're good people. I'll never forget going to the factory. It was an incredible experience. I want to go back.
Oh, you got to get back up there. And I remember when I got your dad involved with Sabian, he just ate the cymbals up, and he just knew how to pick cymbals.
This was picked by him. He picked this out.
Yeah.
What else? And yeah, the bottom of this, I think, my father.
Incredible stuff. Now, talk about you went. You're talking about blood, sweat, and tears. So here you are now. You're playing. You get the call, the gig to go out with blood, sweat, and tears. So what was that like?
Well, I was in North Texas State, and I came back for summer, for winter break, or wherever it was, and they needed a sub. I forgot the situation, but I went out and I subbed for their drummer, and had a really great experience with Clayton and I kind of. I remember like he liked me, and word was out that the drummer was leaving soon, and I think it was almost a year later. I didn't go back to college. I came to New York, and some good things were happening, and then I found out there were auditions for Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and I went, and I saw Clayton again, and he remembered me, and I got the gig. This was a year after I had subbed for them. So that was in 96.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it was an incredible experience. I learned a lot about personalities in that band because Clayton, who was a great guy, and he really liked me. After a couple of months in the band, his colors kind of showed, and it became an uncomfortable type of thing. Without getting into Clayton's pathology, I admire him and I respect him, and he changed my life, but he was difficult, and that's when I first learned about being on the road and dealing with loneliness and personality issues, with people. So that was an incredible learning experience for me.
And how was it like when you were playing the music on stage? When it came to the music, what was the music like?
It was great. It was like it's like a small big band. It was a great rhythm section and trumpet, trombone, and tenor. Just the three of us, three of them. Yeah, just three horns. Right, and it was it was like a really funky small big band with this undeniably recognizable voice that we've heard since this 60s, and it was great, and I did a lot of traveling, but this feeling on stage was amazing because I was a kid, and I realized how lucky I was. I was like, I couldn't believe that I was on the stage with these people. And I was in Canada, or we were in South America and in Curacao, and I just so it was a very amazing experience being on the stage with them. I felt blessed. That was the feeling.
Well, I mean, what incredible, scenarios that you had a chance to experience. In your lifetime, you've done a lot as a young kid being exposed to all this great talent, and then being around music all your life,
Yeah.
and then having your dad, and the Long Island scene was such a rich scene dramistically at that time. There was so much
Yeah.
at what it
Think
was.
about that a lot. The drum center days when, just the community of you and all, you were the guy, and everybody, revolved around you, and you brought all of us together, and it's an incredible memory.
Man, I just wanted everyone to enjoy the fun of all of us being together, and having a great, relationship with drummers that, likes talking to drummers. And we all just, I just tried to bring everyone together, and we have great memories and great fun. And there were many people that are joining us here. Just joining us was John Favicchia. John
Hey,
Favicchia,
John,
another guy that,
my
hey, John,
brother
thanks for
John.
joining us. Another great drummer with his book that he wrote called Elements. And he's got a great book out that I was suggest everyone else, again, to go to hudsonmusic.com, or Alfred, and pick up John Favickia's book, Elements. It's going to help and open your mind also. All these book ideas are so great.
John's
Joe
great.
Bergamini has joined us. Joe is, Joe, who manages the Sabian Education Network. Joe
Hey,
was a
Joe.
student of mine, and when Joe came out to study with me in the early days, I said, listen, you want your reading to get better. You want to, maybe go out and do some Broadway shows. I'm going to send you to Al Miller, who sharpened my reading. So instead of me just teaching you, I'm going to send you to who taught me. While he's still here, get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So
Right.
Bill would drive out from Jersey to my lesson, and then drive another hour further east away from me to go study with your dad. And it was, your dad's lessons that, sharpened Joe's skills, which is why he's played in probably almost every major Broadway show in New York, because they call him and he goes in and reads this stuff, cold. So it's pretty amazing.
Fantastic.
So many great players there. John Gill also joined us. John Gill is a wonderful drummer from upstate Oneonta, New York, another phenomenal player and teacher. And John, also from the Long Island days, remembers all those days with Al and these great players. And I mean, imagine we had, your dad and Jim Chapin and Joe Morello, and there was like such an energy of these great players that,
Incredible.
Incredible. And John Favicki just mentioned, he went down here. I just saw this, John. Yes, Dom, you sent me to Al as well.
That's right.
Thanks, John, for joining us. When John was studying with me, and again, he wanted to get his reading together. I'm always a believer that if you want to, I had such great education with Morello and Chapin and your dad, Al Miller. And when someone came to me and wanted to learn certain qualities, I sent them to them. I said, listen,
I know.
go
you
to
always did that.
While they're here, go to them. I funneled tons of students to these guys because, it was just magical to have learned what they learned. And the fact that you got this, from all these great players, your dad, really is an incredible story, Matt. You really have come a long way, and you've had this incredible ride.
I think so too, and I'm very grateful. I really am. Very grateful.
When I think back too about this, the blessings of your mom. Your mom was just a saint, man. She's just a beautiful person who knew how to empower everybody to do their thing, and just the support that she had when we were all growing up. And she was always there to have a kind word and a wonderful spiritual message for us all. You really came out of a household of beautiful people, and your sisters and brother. I mean, just an incredible, Miller family that your dad, your mom put together that produced some beautiful people.
Thank you, Dom, for saying that. Appreciate that.
Great stuff. And like I said, it doesn't seem like 21 years that your dad is gone, because his presence is clear as ever. In my studio, I've got on my wall, I've got, flyers and brochures that your dad had of his school. I've got that stuff here hanging up, so I see it every day. And just the teaching method of how I incorporated your dad's stuff into my teaching method, how you have done it. There's a lot of powerful stuff here. And now it continues through the concept of what we've done here, that the books continue going on. So we'll get, the other books are already ready to be put out digitally. So what we'll do is we'll start mapping out the early next year to get the next book out digitally, and put it out and promote it and sell it, and get it going, and get people to step into the world of your dad's vision, and then your vision of taking that stuff now well into the 21st century.
Absolutely.
Cool stuff. What would you say to some young students, Matt, in closing? What would you say to this next generation that wants to go out there and follow their dream in playing and performing and teaching, what would you say to them?
Wow. What would I say to them? I mean, honestly, you know, listen to, listen to your teacher. If you try to find somebody who inspires you and, take it seriously. If you want something out of this instrument, you have to study it. I guess that would be the best answer in regard to, you're a young drummer who's just taking this seriously. Just learn as much as you can and listen to as much music as you can and practice as much as you can. Practicing it's fun. It's not a tedious thing. I've discovered this in my later years. I wake up inspired to practice things that I'm really very terrible at, things that I recognize as my weaknesses. To me, it's fun and it's a challenge. And I'm not in a rush. I can go off for now. I'll be quick, but don't be in a rush. There's no rush. If you have something you're working on, embrace it and try to enjoy it, and it'll come to you. That's maybe the best thing I could say to a young student.
That is great, great, great advice. And here's another friend that joined us, Dave Stark. I was also fortunate to stay with Al. Plus, Matt was my roommate during the great living drumming experience we were fortunate to be a part of. So you guys go back a long way. Thanks,
Never
Dave.
Forget it. Unbelievable. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Matt, thank you so much. On behalf of Sabian
and
the Sabian Education Network, this program that we have that is empowering teachers to join us in, to feature them, to give word out. And again, I tell everybody, go to, check this out, man, mattmillerdrum.com and then millardrumschool.com. Go there and check this out for sure and be a part of what Matt is doing. Sign up for lessons. Spend some time with him, and he'll show you some of these books and some of the methods, and I think you'll enhance your playing, and it'll be just absolute fun.
Well, thank you so much, Dom. Really, it was a nice hour spent. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks so much. We'll be in touch soon. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of the Sabian Education Network, stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you real soon in a couple of weeks when I interview Greg Potter, who's now playing drums with the Buddy Rich Big Band. So We'll talk soon. Thank you, Matt, so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.